thoughts, views, and opinions expressed by this novel are for educational purposes only. They do not reflect real intentions, incidents, or beliefs. Author, Apulatum Achawabi illustrations by Tesperlis. This page is intentionally left blank. Chapter 1 proceeded since 3rd grade, PlayStation, and computer games have become my eye-opener to America with so much admiration. To say movies and music haven't become as well as an understatement, but nothing like video games, due to their experiential engagement by actually controlling characters and thinking through. One of the first English sentences I enjoyed repeating was from the Psy game Jackie Chan stunt master, "Catch me if you can." No clue as to what that meant at the time, but my father wasn't hesitant to translate and explain any words or sentences I came across. He was a university professor who earned his master's and PhD from the University of Missouri. Even though Psy had low graphics, games such as Driver 2 and Spider-Man never stopped me from knowing what wandering inside different cities was like. PS2 allowed me to play Freed Fighters, a plumber fighting against the Soviet invasion inside New York City, Midnight Club 3, urban racing game that portrayed Detroit, San Diego, and Atlanta, and The Godfather, narrated the mafia lifestyle. PS3 and PC gaming took me deeply towards the American Civil War and lawlessness of the 19th century in the Call of Juarez, towards the details of many major cities including Chicago and Boston in the Mafia 2 and much more. My upbringing was well influenced. It's been 4 months since I graduated high school. My two parents are advising me about a scholarship to study civil aviation and become a pilot. It's being given by the Ministry of Education, here in Bari, which 2 of my previous classmates are applying for. Bari was declared a state only 63 years ago, a deteriorated third-world country with no foundation to develop and no hope for change. Blaming its politicians and the powers that be for the undergone failures, not real, they are a reflection and a byproduct of a deep-rooted copycat mentality that is being lived by through its people. Everyone is caught in a lifetime cycle that starts with, "See, this is how you do it," and ends up with unannounced misery. Take our TV for instance. Ask any cameraman or director and they'll tell you, "This is the angle the footage is captured from, this is how the decoration is set, these are the topics we should be discussing," etc. Accepting no argument that perhaps you should try different things, overlooking your attempt of doing something new that was met by failure. They're not afraid to show you a Western program as an example and say, "Look. See, this is how it's done." All coming later to have tasteless impersonated programs, copied from the world media that are sickening and heartbreaking to watch. Nothing authentic aside from details they call creativity. Forcefully convincing themselves that it is fun and meaningful. They'll never admit it's garbage. In fact, they're showing smiles, but they all know it. Why would anyone want to see you with your prizes asking passersby who invented the first watch? Or which continent is bigger? Don't you get tired of that? I'll never forget when Curtis James Jackson III, known as 50 Cent, went on an interview with the New York radio station The Breakfast Club and said, "A lot of people are followers. Look how many people go to business class. If everything you needed was in that business class, in that book, there would be too many successful business people. How many people graduating? In matter of fact, the professor wouldn't got the time to sit there and teach you sick. He knows this book damn near verbatim, page by page he knows it, right? He be too busy. He would be doing so much right now that he got the trees, selling so much that he ain't got no time to teach no mothering classes right now because I am winning. Now wait. Maybe I'll do it once, a seminar, but he ain't gonna commit to teaching no class if he'll be doing good in business himself. And that says it all. Now there might be hypocrisy in having an affection towards America and still mock those who copy it, but see. It's not the American life I want, it's the American way. The appreciation of free thought that its citizens carry that are the mother womb of new technologies and lifestyles. Video games taught me to be and not to imitate because you play the character. You don't watch the character, therefore they aren't just a display but it's you who experience decisions, and that's the life I want, a life where everything is new. Bari is having only fixed endeavors. I would rather have a different struggle every day than the same one because the latter is torturous, and perhaps that's why America seems to be a good adventure. A career opportunity in the USA isn't easy. I keep trying to apply for a medicine scholarship in one of the states despite my last rejected application. The government sends only those with favors, so will there ever be a success? I'm in a precarious situation since there's only little time left. For the aviation school. My father got a contact that could get me in and he's talking about next month. While speaking to those previous classmates, V and Bushki, who are from town, V said, "This the best thing that might have happened to us. If we graduate as pilots, well be flying airliners, our Facebook profiles would show glamorous high clouds in a cockpit full of luminous instruments. Is that what you do it for?" Bushki asked with a smirk on his face. "No, of course not. We do it to make a good living. What else could you do? Look around." V replied. Our contact brought the good news one evening, and under the encouragement of my parents, elder sister, and brother, I ended up going. Here I go, arriving at Wingtip Air Academy, a private-funded institution in the South, walking in the medical building to get health checked as a student pilot. There are 4 sitting at a table and a 5th one standing to order his coffee. He's wearing black sneakers, blue jeans, and a white untucked uniform shirt with golden stripes. Who would take that seriously? "Are you here for the check?" he asks while blowing his smoke. "Yes." "Are you with the first 200 or the second 200? "What do you mean?" "I think you should talk to the man over there with the list. It turns out there are 400 enrolled. The large amount is shocking. I wonder how many graduated in the past and how many are currently working. Our country has only 3 airlines with a total number of about 10 airplanes and 5 other light aircraft. The ground school at the academy the next day was packed with student pilots. It's good that curiosity pulled me to the operation building where flying is conducted, because that's when I met an Airbus A320 first officer who's renewing his expired license, and while I mentioned the amount of students, he said, "These are only the new students. There are job applications of more than 500 graduates in each of our airlines already. Bari is full of pilots with no planes to fly. Being qualified alone won't get you the job unless you dance with the devil as well. Now, I certainly know what he meant. There isn't a way but to kiss hands in order to step your way up. The old game of exchanging favors and seeing who can get you in and what you need to throw to the wolves, just to fill a job that is already fulfilled. I hate this. The ministry doesn't care what education is needed, they care about which private institution to pay. Us students don't care what the country needs, we care about which job brings more money and reputation. No wonder our country looks like it looks. Not really sure whether it's the disregard to a long-term plan in my country or this nerve-wracking process of the career ladder that made me want to quit, but I did. My family was a little hurt at first, but they never pushed me, especially father who values freedom of choice unlike most families know. He's giving me so much freedom that he sometimes jokes, "You two blame me for it one day and say you should have beat me up." Though, I was still talked into studying linguistics at the university, it wasn't time-consuming to me. While playing games online, a friend whom I met on the PlayStation Network said they need someone who can write and edit for the company's website where he works. I picked up on editing during high school just for the sake of it. After writing for a local gaming website, it became clear how to edit articles, videos, and audio and how to run content management systems, forums, etc. Among all the tools, Joomla was my favorite one. It allows you to display content in a very organized fashion. The company didn't think twice about hiring me after they saw the work I was capable of, so I worked there for 1 year while applying for jobs in the USA with no luck. Eventually I quit after it wasn't interesting anymore and money was never the motive, but now I am close friends with Julio, the one friend who got me the job. He knows about my American dream and he has a different one of his own. He wishes to go back to Doorland where his mother is from and where he was raised before his father came home to Bari. Being an island at the southern temperate zone of the South Pacific Ocean, Doorland is full of greenery. It's windy most of the year and very cold during winter. It has a long mountain range that frequently gets covered with snow and a large number of lakes. A long river cuts through its capital Hashia and eventually gets mixed with the ocean at the western Gulf of Farol Lift. Sigh. Man, wish I was there far from all this ignorant rhetoric and treacherous hypocrisy. I was in a civilized society, living peacefully before I was forced to come. Julio said once. Luckily for Julio, he didn't have purple hair and violet pupils like all Makotians do. That would have made him stand out, although he got their narrow eyes and caramel complexion. While we were browsing his hard drive, he showed me the highly equipped elementary school where he studied. Other pictures showed how stunning the capital was with its huge urban environment. There were a lot of videos on YouTube showing the country's tech companies and massive shipyards. Foreigners are living there too. I would definitely go there if it's possible. Is there a chance someone could travel there from Bari? I asked with a very obvious intention. Well, they have student exchange programs, aren't you eligible? You can give that a try. Then escape the program, get a job and settle. My father totally disagreed with this idea, especially when I pointed out that I want to leave Bari for good. Why would I leave my country and go live with strangers? Tapping his hand on the table, your future is here, son. Almost no one from Bari can manage to get into international exchange programs anywhere they want, let alone get a visa to Doorland. But my application was supported by civil society groups that I am affiliated to as a writer and editor. Eventually, I got accepted to the College of Liberal Arts and Sciences at HULP University as an exchange student. The program was for 1 year only, and it's in Doorland. Chapter 2. This is new. While taking a taxi from the airport, it was fascinating how colored and bright things are. Back home is so gray and hazy due to the pollution. It's still hard to fathom how all this is happening. I've never been anywhere before. Days are going by fast but too long. I am spending the whole time walking streets of different architecture, riding the city bikes downtown and trying everything, starting from McDonald's and Starbucks to cinema and concerts. The band Daughter was on tour and it felt surreal to see Elena Tonra sing my favorite songs right on stage. It's very different to experience another country in reality compared to watching it on TV. The television is a product of the world is not a product of it, hence when a picture turns into real time a certain aura appears. Learned about the Tinder dating app from FauciTube, an American prankster who experimented with women's standards towards men, by going out on dates with them using the platform. I couldn't tell if that would work in casual life, especially here and with me. The app stood its ground on the Play Store. The girls that were shown looked so gorgeous that I thought the application was a setup. Instead of describing myself as a student at HULP, I wrote writer. I didn't stare closely at more than a few girls because I swiped right on everybody. There can be enough time for consideration later if a match happens. After a couple hours, I got a match with Olga, a blonde girl who's 1 year older than me, 23. The first conversation ended up quick after exchanging basic information. She just moved from Moscow, Russia to start a cosmetic business in Hashia. It would have been very vulgar to ask why here and not Russia. I hit her up a couple days later and we decided to meet that same afternoon. I walked to the bus stop, heading to the coffee shop deluged in happiness, looking downhill at the city being lit up by the sun, wondering what it's going to be like to meet her. Well, it wasn't hard, all I did was be myself. I learned that no one is ever ready for a date, just make sure you don't sound like a creep and be a gentleman. For some reason she never spoke about the future, only the past. That was okay. The date ended with a few opinions about Doorland that were superficially positive from my end but a little disappointing from hers, so I put that in the bank. The next dates had so much walking and talking, but after a while, Olga and I got along more and ended up in a relationship. There are no talks about future plans or any of our life perspectives. We're experiencing the city together and paying attention only to what comes in front of us. Rarely do we bring up subjects out of the blue. If any, it would be our past life. It's more of a situation where we both don't know what to plan next. She doesn't look happy with her new cosmetic shop at all. Unlike myself, Olga is more oriented with the foreign world and pretty educated. She went to St. Petersburg University for her bachelor's and was very deep into the marketing field. Even though she isn't successful at anything I saw, she is very committed. I avoided meeting her parents when they came for dinner once. They wanted to see me. That was a huge mistake. I could have sat down and for sure learned a lot from them even if I mess up. Besides, what's there to hide? Back and forth between my dorm and her apartment, I am starting to be interested in seeing someone else messing around. Arrogance built up every time I stared at the mirror. If I could be with this girl, perhaps I could be with more. I am thinking this is not a hard task, that girls are everywhere and I am good to go. I will have to tell her that I need time off and that I don't know why we're together. I never did. Instead I chose to run away and not answer any messages. If my dorm friends will ask about her, I'm going to say she cheated on me. She didn't chase me a bit, no messaging or any form of demand. Now it's time to find another girl. I spent the whole next month trying to start a chat on Tinder and nothing worked. That definitely carried regret. It wasn't long until Portuguese students passed me a marijuana joint at the dorm. That had me high for the first time. I couldn't stop laughing. Listening to music was entirely different while being high then sober, and so was my consciousness. Never smoked back home, stoners were frowned upon, which I kind of thought was denigration and stigma. Weed took me on a whole new trajectory. Being high was so interesting that I dedicated a budget just for it. The exchange program was funded by the United Nations. Accommodation means we're already being given along with a scholarship. The money that I brought with me wasn't much but still extra. Before even a couple months passed by, smoking weed turned from being this spiritual and mental tool to a deep addiction. Staying without it was very anxious and depressing. I continued to smoke as much as I could. A weed dealer who later became a friend invited me to join his group of other international students that are going to a techno club. I happily accepted his invitation. On the bus, everyone said they'll take ecstasy. Now, I've seen pills and drugs in the movies but never thought I would try them. We're entering the club that Wednesday night. Techno music is... It's not hard to find a drug dealer. Everyone is offering drugs and I didn't mind taking ecstasy as well and see what it's like. I reassured myself that this won't ever lead to abuse or addiction of any kind. 45 minutes went by after swallowing the pill and it's starting to kick in. Techno is becoming so good and a feeling of joy and happiness spawned for no reason. I'm going through mental pleasure and physical euphoria. My expectations of drugs were way below this experience. I never thought such a thing would exist. Music turned out to have a whole nother meaning in a world of its own. It felt good to be alive during the whole night, but the next 2 days after that included paranoia, a sharp-looking face and no appetite. That didn't stop me from using it again. I subconsciously assumed it's nothing serious. I liked the high, so I accepted that trade. Paying almost no attention to studies, this drug use is getting further as the months go by. Ecstasy pills are every weekend now and I am smoking weed every day with my blockmates at the dorm. A friend once woke me up from sleep saying it's his birthday and started pouring vodka. Him and I, along with a couple others, collected money to buy cocaine after we got drunk. Cocaine was addictive from the first time. The high was even stronger and more euphoric than ecstasy. This is something I should not fall into and use with caution. During the next few occasions of drinking, alcohol happened to be the strongest lead up to cocaine, because it was all I could think of with extreme dedication while I was drunk. The drug use and partying continued, so I once drank many cocktails, sniffed cocaine, swallowed MDMA, and smoked weed at the same time. I don't know how I even went home the next day. I am surprised I didn't have a heart attack, because I answered a call from a friend and my voice was... I am surprised I didn't have a heart attack, because I answered a call from a friend and my voice was compressed like if I'm dying. One night, 4 or 5 ecstasy pills had me almost overdose and luckily I survived. Moral: the first semester results came and I failed some modules. It's okay. I was told I can do them during the second semester. Failing the second semester was only a scary thought in the beginning. I found out I could redo the whole year again if I fail. Jewish people seem very resolved and educated. The majority is very liberal. Going back to Bari is out of the question. Finding ways to stay here and move forward indeed has a lot to reveal, but there's not that much worry. I'm destined to be here or perhaps continue this traveling journey to somewhere else. 3 years later. The plane arrived at an airport around 200 kilometers away from home. My father was there waiting for me. We haven't seen each other in 2 years and 8 months. Once we hugged and looked at each other, it was clear how he got older even though it wasn't that long. He is now shorter and thinner and his face is a little wrinkly. He preached to me a little bit like he always used to, about responsibilities and moving on. I was anxious as I am figuring out that it's hard to build a future, especially on my own in this country. It's the same environment I was surrounded by before I left, but now it either got tougher or I got weaker, because I am all afraid of what's to come. The next morning the rented driver took us to the capital Bari, in order to meet my brother who will then drive us back to town. The road was cutting through farms and open fields so there wasn't much to see yet. On the way there, the car kept bumping over the cracked asphalt, and it was sad to see how trash and plastic is all over the main road. I had cut myself a promise to stay strong and man up. I knew it's going to be hard. But I managed to stay calm only until we reached the capital, because once we got there and the driver left, I told my father that I am going back to Duerland as soon as I can. The narrow crowded streets and poor crumbling buildings got the best of me somehow. There is no problem getting inside Duerland since my temporary residence permit is still valid, but I have no idea how to renew it or what to do when I get there. Having known families from Bari that applied for asylum in Canada, doing the same just in Duerland was considerable. Browsing the internet had landed me right at the official page of the Durish Migration Department. Now I'm thinking about claiming political asylum and making up a fake story that my life is under threat. That shouldn't be very hard. I'll just make it simple and only answer their questions. Bari is famous for its political turmoil. I'll claim asylum at the airport right when I get there. I decided. After studying the plot and staying at home for a few days I went and booked a flight to Duerland. Even though I was adamant about it, the idea of going out again and facing the world was doubtful. Yes, staying here is unbearable, but what am I supposed to do there? What's the right decision to take? Clearly something is wrong. It's unknown whether it's the drugs that took a toll on me or it's just an awakening, but I am so paranoid and depressed. The flight was on Wednesday afternoon. After a long night of soul searching, I woke up and went to my father who was sitting at the kitchen table and I decided not to go. I should stay here, I said with what seemed like wisdom. You made the right choice, he replied. Once the plane schedule has gone by and it was ascertained that my next days were gonna be here, depression and hopelessness broke into me within the first hour, so strong that I went out the house yard, seen my father and said so anxiously, I must go, I can't stay here. He spazzed out, are you playing with me? I can't stay here. I kept saying. It's a serious problem, $1,000 were lost on the ticket and here I am saying I need to go again. The drugs could have taken a toll on me and affected my mental health or perhaps it's an awakening. The next weeks are being spent at home trying to figure out what to do. I am losing sleep smoking one cigarette after another while haunted by the past and oblivious to the future. It could be a tendency of mine or might be something I was raised upon, but I am always honest with family members. Once I realized drugs have critically damaged my mental health, my family had to know about it, but they also had to know that I am no longer using, which was true. Mom got upset when she found out, but my father acted like he already knew. There was no judgment by anyone else and neither any reaction, except for proposing psychiatric treatment. Just like expected, there wasn't any repercussion to my honesty. One thing my parents were worried about is if I ever used any needles or took heroin. I stayed away from that. Needles and heroin always looked scary and deadly to me, I clarified. We believe you, they replied. I asked my father one evening if he knows what should dictate my next step. Everything stands on 3 columns: abilities, morals, and goals. If you work them out interchangeably, you, too, advance smoothly, he explained. That did clarify a lot, different aspects that can build a picture if correctly estimated. My goals should be bound by my circumstances to determine their probability. They should also be restricted by the values that I stand for. But that's easier said than done. How can someone know their abilities? People have done a lot of things that were deemed impossible. Drawing limitations of what one can or cannot do is debilitating. Ambition is an important property of humankind, and without it nothing evolves or improves. Nothing is more assuring to stagnation than not trying at all. If someone would take the decision to limit themselves, they have to really accept it so they don't end up disappointed and miserable eventually. I am not sure how to set that up for myself. Morals, on the other hand, can be very convoluted and nothing is making any sense, but I know what I want to be remembered of, so I will write down all the values that I stand for: honesty, generosity, kindness, loyalty, and respect. Goals. I guess since I am distressed by life here in Bari and found comfort in Doorland, then it must be the environment. My goal is to live in a good environment, I concluded. Even after I was convinced that I needed a good environment, the idea that I won't see my parents whom I love so much was almost impossible to get over. It's weird how these feelings were gone during the last few years, but I'd say I was too distracted then. How can I be away from those that brought me to this world? Who raised me and fed me since I was as small as a laptop? Don't think about us. Yes, we wish to have you here with us, but that shouldn't be the reason you stay or go. We don't need your help. My parents said so. I booked another ticket after a few more days. Uncertainty and doubt had me walking back and forth in front of the hotel before the airport, like someone who had just lost his mind. So much confusion and fear. After gathering strength and entering the airport, I had a panic attack right before the boarding gate and decided not to go. 4 weeks later, I decided to try again but ended up in tears, staring at the ground of the airport parking lot with grief and angst. My mom is giving me hand gestures while sitting in the back seat and my father is leaning on the trunk of the car. It breaks my heart that I won't see them again for at least a long time if health doesn't catch up to them. If you're in this much burden, just stay here then. My father trying to dissuade me. Nowhere in this world is full of ease. Even Donald Trump must be struggling with something. Our country is just another. Later, we came to a simple solution, which is to give it a try, and if I feel down, I just go back. And bring us some chocolate from the duty free if you come back, Mom said, smiling. That was enough to go. Chapter 3. Within many during the 2 months that were spent at home, every expectation about Doorland was based on my previous experience of having my own place in a beautiful district, money, calm campus, and a hot vanilla flavored chai latte from the gas station, together with a joint at the balcony every evening. Mostly just peace of mind. Once I applied for asylum at the border police in Hashia Airport. I was escorted by a police officer to grab my luggage. Then, he and the driver took me with a police van to a police station. I was put into a room after being searched and photographed, just to be called an hour later for investigation. I signed a paper allowing them to go through my mobile along with 2 hard disks that were taken from me. Right next to the investigation room, there is a concrete precinct with a glass door. They had me wait there before they started. The policeman locked the room with keys. It's the first time ever that I felt deprived of freedom, even though it was just for a few minutes. After 2.5 hours, the investigation was over. I had laid down my claims and told my story. I am being taken by the same police van to a big hangar. I get asked to get rid of my clothes and wear new ones that were given to me. New socks, new underwear, everything. I will receive my bags only after 48 hours. They have to stay in the freezer all that time. It's a big hangar that has tents with bunk beds inside. I will call it a day for now. I stepped out of the canteen the next day after lunch. I had just seen families and individuals, some of whom were Russians, Arabs, Africans, and Asians. No one from Bari. It's winter, outside is cold, drizzling and overcast. We're allowed to go outside. There's a social worker moving around and she saw me on my way out. Don't go too far, bending towards me with her hand on my shoulder, before she adds. And please stay on the small road where people walk, don't go in front of cars. That's something only ancients wouldn't know. The sidewalk is clear and the 4 lanes of the main road are so as well. What type of people they've been dealing with? By looking through the GPS and walking around, I am somewhere in the center of the country, hundreds of kilometers away from Hashia. There's nothing but farms and highways. Some asylum seekers inside the camp aren't that much about themselves. They pay a lot to others. Some are trying to make eye contact to initiate a conversation. That's not how I engage with people, especially those that don't sit or stand next to me. If there's no reason to talk, then there's no reason to talk. There are conversations that happen by themselves. Now I am finding out that most of the people are coming via the refugee quotas. Although, some are smuggled inside ships while some applied through the transit area of the airport. All of us here are about 50 people. The place is clean and equipped, but it turned out to be a transfer camp to process new arrivals. After 14 days and a few medical tests, we've been taken to a more residential camp that has about 600. I am sharing a room with 3 other people. In Doorland you are considered very lousy if you throw cigarette butts on the ground, but the entrance was basically covered with them. It was very disturbing to see how some toilets were left splattered with feces, and how some have been defecated right next to on the floor. The shower walls were stained with yellow grease and red splashes. None of the basins are in a proper condition, most are closed and the rest are dirty. No one cleans after using the stove or cutting on the table. The microwave is all brown from the inside and the shelves are sticky and stink. People wash their shoes inside the washing machine and leave spoiled food inside the fridge forever. It's chaos almost 24/7. Someone must be at least yelling across the hallway or multiple languages are out loud from the kitchen. In the balcony, someone is always making a call. You can try to respect violent men who disagree or raise their voice. There's no way you can respect ones that don't clean after. You lose hope quickly. I am finding my own ways of coping with this hard environment. Some things you just got to accept, but that's not easy. My roommates are Salim from Somalia, Jevgenij from Russia and Prabhu from Sri Lanka. Jevgenij is in his 60s. He was fighting with Azov Battalion in eastern Ukraine, against Russian separatists before he fled the region. Salim is my age, a sailor who loves the ocean. Prabhu is in his 30s and only open about how he got here inside the ship. He's talking about current things the most. You can tell they just wanted peace. None of them sound interested in any scuffles. 100 meters away is a closed camp, a secured facility that housed not refugees, but foreigners in general who had issues with staying. They're either inside the cages, walk for 1 hour at the yard or go to the canteen surrounded by dogs and shotguns. I am hearing they got pedophiles and killers. Some were wanted by the Interpol and others unidentified. If anyone clears himself out, they move to our building. All the social workers and doctors of this facility are women. Comments of the men towards them reflect lust and disrespect. They make me wonder how much of a struggle the women are prone to. I had to stand up once and leave the group of guys I was sitting next to when they expressed their lechery for a worker that passed by. It was depressing to sit with them and be a part of it. I felt so invaluable as a man. There's no doubt that the subconscious mind can tamper with one's attitude and lead to unintended sexual actions. But to allow yourself to go so IOW and sexually seek women on the regular is an animal behavior, not humans. I wonder if those who argue in favor of human animalism can accept that a behavior as such is animalistic mentally as well. If men continue to view women inhumanely and not live under social construct of meaning and dignity, then women will continue to not respect any man in the sexual sense. Because the former made sure throughout history to mishandle their urge and turn it into a predicament every time. I am supposed to stay here at least for a year to conduct an interview about my asylum case, then if accepted, I should be given a residence permit and be allowed to work and join society, but nothing is ever guaranteed. The pregabalin withdrawal is getting very strong, time is passing slowly and I am depressed. It's hard to see through, whether to leave all this behind and go home or hang on to get out and live like I used to. Refugees are clearly isolated from the world even though they can get outside, there is nowhere to go. All are hoping for documents that allow you to start over. Prabhu called it, the world of the dead. Everyone here leaned on something, grouping up together under undeclared affiliations and race. I was terrible at that. I treated people individually, standing my ground and having my own opinion about stuff. I'd rather fall than be affiliated to something I have no say-so about. Then again, I have no respect for most people here. No one wants to do anything about the conditions, calling me negative every time I suggest something. You're so negative. Look for positive things, they say. People see positivity when it doesn't exist, thinking that's a good thing. Why can't we change things that trouble us? Are we selfish? Or reluctant to face reality? I am completely alone. I talk to Jevgenij sometimes, but only because we're inclined to hate some people. Hate is a dangerous thing that builds up to crazy decisions. It's like a fireball. It'll burn until you either throw it at someone's face or just let it go. I chose to let it go. Differences in the state of mind of oneself can be tricky to notice, same as with body weight. The changes are very gradual, you won't know until you get told. In my case, my actions were about to do that for me. 4 months in, the pregabalin withdrawal was at its peak. Waking up to face another day was torture. There is a railway nearby. I went there one day and jumped the fence to wait for the next train and lay in front of it. The train never came, but 2 police women did. I look at the street on my right and it's a police car pulling over. Someone must have called them. I guess it's not happening. I asked. No, it's not, the policeman replied, looking through the fence. Do you want to go with my colleagues? He asked. So, I ended up at the psychiatric unit for a couple days with people disconnected from reality, luckily no prison. I wasn't shocked at the time, but after getting out and smoking hashish inside the camp, it scared me how crazy I was when I got stoned and calmed down. Who would want to take their own life? I need to fix myself. 3 days go by and the worker at the kitchen who's getting under my skin stood in my way for no reason. I could have probably avoided him, but I fell for it. I punched him and he cut my hand with a table knife. One witness blamed me. The police took me to the station and locked me inside a cell. A paper on the tinted window says I might stay 6 months just to be prosecuted. The cell was so small and I couldn't handle it. I broke down crying. I knew at that moment that I am not as strong as I thought. It's unbearable to be confined inside a concrete box and lose freedom. All I had was thoughts and time. Luckily, the prosecutor dropped the charges and let me go after 24 hours. That was enough to have me sit down and take things seriously. I wanted to let someone know about what happened, and that couldn't be family. That will bother them. I wanted to talk to someone from back home, but there is no more communication with any of my friends. They all moved on after I relinquished the contact. I am sure Trey was disappointed by me. He was holding his tears when he drove me to the airport the first time I left. We spent the whole university freshman year joking around and listening to music. We checked a lot of restaurants and watched a lot of hip-hop shows. I am also sure that Baha, Loahi and Amir from Palestine got let down too. These people have invited me to see their families and cook dinners. They have brought me to their circles and were proud to introduce me. Baha wasn't a drinker, but we all enjoyed lots of bar talks and mutual opinions, shared many books, jokes and sarcasm. An Indonesian classmate was always online in my squad playing Battlefield 3 and wrote articles for my gaming website the entire time. We talked about what we thought of careers and family. We had fun doing barbecues, exploring the capital and meeting new people. Why did they get mad that I isolated myself? It wasn't personal, it was everybody. Besides, if they demanded me, then they wanted something. I wondered. And that's not a genuine friendship, I concluded. What is a genuine friendship then? A genuine friend is the one who isn't around to benefit or capitalize, but because he/she likes your personality and is interested to know your reactions or care for your well-being and feel sorry for Looking back at how I met those people, I realized I hadn't had a genuine intention with any of them. I was with Trey because I wanted to know what it's like to be friends with important figures. Trey's father was an influential politician and a powerful rich man. Even though I wasn't interested in financial favors and hadn't taken any, that's still not genuine. The Palestinian dudes hang around with a girl who hired people in United Nations programs, so I wanted to meet her. The Indonesian gamer was a good writer and made good articles for my gaming website. Those intentions didn't stop me from developing a mutual liking and interest with all of them and many others. Therefore, friendships can end up genuine but never start so. They either start with an exchange of favors or common goals. 9 months later, when the year passed, I was coming back from a walk when my case inspector gave me the news that my asylum application had been accepted. They chose to give me asylum and issue a residence permit. I got sent to another facility west of Hashia and was given a place to stay for 3 months, until I find a job and settle in an apartment, with an income from the government. There are multiple changes in the circumstance but also within myself. The pregabalin withdrawal is gone but won't matter even if it wasn't, because I turned off both good and bad feelings, applying a whole new approach of accomplishing productive days, seeking meaningful results and not pleasure. There's no more confusion as to what my purpose should be. It's very clear now. It's helping people. Every end of day is filled with gratitude after working, exercising and planning. I now find satisfaction in the simplest things after being in the worst environment. It's a paradise that this new place has no noise and is extremely calm. There's no more howling and yelling, no more dirty toilets and not that many people. Looking through jobs, I came across what looked like a very good barber shop in Hashia that hires foreigners. I got an answer the next day from the owner, saying he would want to meet after I mentioned that I know how to cut hair. This barber shop has the highest ratings among all other barber shops and is very luxurious. The owner later told me that he is interested in foreign barbers since Jewish people aren't very skilled at this job. It was hard to learn everything but with the help of one colleague from Mexico. Started learning everything quickly, all I needed was some guidance. I already can handle a bit of hair. This barber shop runs 6 chairs, each one is provided with all the tools and products, space was more than needed for each. Everyone welcomed me except one person who looked like he had a grudge. I just spent a year in the worst environment and dealt with the worst of people enough now. I'll do my best to handle him if he does something. During the first month this guy is leaving the tap water hot so that I burn my clients while washing their heads. He stole my tools to get me confused. It's obvious that it's him. He throws his trash in my kin and walks like he owns the place. If one thing I learned from getting into it with people is that if someone came at you, go at him. You don't have to find me because I'll be looking for you. 2 years later. People don't make up their mind immediately when they see someone that has been gone for a while. Most have a temporary reaction response, one that neutralizes new incidents or discoveries. It allows the person to keep doing what he's doing until he gets a vacancy to elaborate on what happened. A technique to revise the people involved, their history, intentions and possible truths. Once the conclusion is made, they apply it in the next engagement with those whom they met. That explains why some of my previous relatives and friends were welcoming and cheerful when I first contacted them. We even made plans together, but then completely avoided me when they got approached the second time. That goes back to their technique. They had to sit down and remember my past, measure my success and reputation. They also measure their benefits and losses. Parents or significant others might as well influence them to not talk to me and take precautions. Mostly these people aren't independent and need to consult someone, not as if being dependent is a bad thing, but losing freedom is a hell of a problem too. A problem that should be weighed next to your affiliation to see whether it's something worth sacrificing. Sometimes this first response is genuine interest and friendliness but gets overtaken the same way. This process doesn't necessarily happen quickly. Families, for example, could build their judgment over a year or more after their discovery and then reflect it. My family wasn't judgmental when I admitted taking drugs, but after a few years, my sister started keeping her kids away from me even though I quit a long time ago with no disease of any kind. My brother as well. My father doesn't take me seriously and speaks to me as if I have to only listen and not talk, as if I am nothing major, nothing that could produce truth or facts. All the family is expecting the worst out of me, perceiving me as what might be immoral or envious, senseless, or dangerous to deal with. They can't be blamed for misjudging my personality, but what's the reason for deeming me immoral? What does morality have to do with being an addict? An addiction is a weakness. Yes, it has a lot of false in it, but addicts aren't necessarily harmful or evil. A lot of others out there look healthy and clean, yet they're killers, rapists, and thieves. The devil is not stupid to have horns and carry a pitchfork. He must look tidy and casual. Besides, everyone has his downfalls and most have consumed substance as well. The only difference is that no one knows about it. Some former drug users consider that period to be not as significant as some others so that it doesn't count as much. A society that doesn't encourage its individuals to admit failures and retardation isn't worthy of respect and full of humility and hatred, where every failure is laughed at and misjudged. Everything is taught by example, whether good or bad. People only listen to whom they want to be like. No one will take business advice from a homeless man. Reverse-wise, people will only learn prevention by seeing a damaged example. So why does no one want to share their afflictions and losses? Of course, if the subject is brought up, all you hear is no one is infallible, we all make mistakes. But no one ever admits anything except non-severe stuff. Younger generations need to know where the erupted inside foolishness someone, how disappointments occurred and what damage has been caused. Some know that their self-inflicted losses are a good example to prevent others from getting hurt, but their ego and fear is simultaneously stopping them from sharing, while some don't even care. Some even wish others to suffer like they did, putting themselves on the other side of the seesaw, so other people's success will always mean their failure. I stay away from the seesaw mentality because even if someone competes with you, they don't focus on improving themselves, they instead want the competitor to go down. I feel hated and despised by everyone, really. It doesn't look through the mirror that I was on drugs or that I spent some time in prison. Still, I don't wear fancy clothes or speak with an urban accent. I also don't have a career. These things are a distraction and illusion, but people don't think so. They look at what you wear and how you talk, what you earn and who you know. We will all die one day and will be stripped out of everything except one, the truth. No one can take the truth from your soul once you know it. Honesty and authenticity leads you there, but who's willing to face his demons? Who's willing to admit wrong? Who's willing to listen rather than talk all the time? Who's honest enough to point out the contradictions and expose the sensitive aspects? Some people aren't meant to wake up. They're afraid to make choices that will lead them to attempts of failure and embarrassment. They wouldn't want that. Starting from 3.5 years ago, all relatives and friends have distanced themselves from me. Not having colleagues or mutual goals with anybody and running away from my ex-girlfriend had me end up completely alone. Loneliness in the prison was hard in the beginning and even made me angry at times, but after long enough I became immune to it. I got caught up with myself swimming inside my thoughts and memories for hours and hours, every day. Reconsidering myself with everyone I knew, it is a deep process. Memories started to come back all the way from childhood. Here I am realizing that I have bullied people in schools and households, ran my mouth badly behind relatives' back, betrayed loyalties, caused trouble, and been very bothersome and selfish. I was even the reason that some people stopped speaking to each other. Finding out that you're a bad person is the hardest thing to imagine. It feels worse than being persecuted. There is no more right to resent anyone. I am no different than any of the folks I ran into, perhaps even worse. All this time I thought my struggles with people would be compensated by the higher power because I am a good person, but now they won't. There is no reason to. I'd be lucky if I'm forgiven. If I step in hell, no argument can be made. I would have to shut up a long time for something to be said. This is too scary. The reason I never realized I was immoral towards the people that got hurt, and why I always thought I was right is what David Hume tried to explain: instinct and feelings. I just felt right. I thought that immoral people feel that what they're doing is immoral but they choose to do it. That if something is moral it would feel so. The more I grew, the more it's becoming clear that logic is the only thing that makes sense. How come not? That's what the whole thing is about in the first place. To distinguish the fallacy in feelings. A person that uses sensibilities for judgment can be the worst human ever because he's always prone to mistakes. Reasonable morality is a very hard task that drove me crazy and gave me panic attacks and psychotic episodes, plenty of times. Perhaps it's not possible to overthink so much at once. It's better to take breaks, but my mind is so obsessed with these ideas. I can't stop unpacking the hypothesis to see where morality becomes true, to extract the principle that solves the mystery of what's right and wrong. Confucianism's principle of treat others how you want to be treated only lasted a bit before it was obvious that a lot is still missing. Even if that's true, who gets the first priority? What's our duty? Where to start? Will it work? I can go on and on. Here and there, months go by and answers start to appear one by one. Which morality has the highest priority? A strong way to trick people is to make them think there are only two options. Take the famous trolley problem for instance. A hypothetical dilemma where one must choose between either letting a trolley hit 5 people who are strapped at the railway, or switch a lever that will divert it into a different track where only one person is stuck. Where supposedly it's up to you whether one person dies or 5 of them. There can't be a third option here in terms of what you can do. A spontaneous response is to immediately lower the number of casualties and divert the trolley to hit the one person on the right rather than 5. Even if that's a consequential way to think, is it fair to that one person getting killed? Of course not. No matter how many factors were considered or details added, it'll never be moral to apply any of the options given. One can argue that the situation lacks more description that should exist and would help us be responsible. As if the people must have known something was wrong or taken accountable measures in their involvement. Still, that'll always keep something missing. The problem of the trolley looks like if it's simply built when it's not. Those philosophers and professors who use it know exactly where it can expand and how difficult it is. It's fair to say this is a time-consuming question at first and kind of disappointing at the end, when nothing makes any sense. Many criticize the realism of such a scenario and the psychological and moral compatibility. Actually, this scenario is happening in our world every day in large masses. Look at all the soldiers in many wars who think they should kill the enemy because if not, then the enemy will kill their families. They never stop to look at who caused these circumstances in the first place. An effective way to make a murderer is to convince someone that they are already one. To convince him how helpless he is, that not committing atrocities will lead to more atrocities. That the negative is only negated with another negative, that positive does not exist. That loss and tragedy is inevitable and we just need to lessen it every time. To direct one's vision to a certain angle that only views what his controller wants him to see. To distract him from asking the question of why am I here anyway, who put me here? This can be prevented before it's this narrow and complicated. The answer to the trolley problem is to leave the switch lever because that's not what's going to save people. If you push the lever to kill one rather than 5 means you played a part in it, that you encouraged whoever put you there to put another one after you. The moral duty is to eliminate whoever put you in that situation and strap those people on the railway. It can be that simple. The only time where a moral excuse is compatible with this problem is if someone from your nation is on one of these tracks. In that case, diverting the trolley the other way shouldn't have a shadow of doubt. Will it work? The dilemma of morality is a problem of determination. It's possible for morality to function effectively under certain umbrellas. If a group of 3 united under the goal of building a car, right and wrong becomes true relative to that described goal. Good morals become the actions that achieve that goal and vice versa. Same goes for family and unity. If they agree on the distribution of resources and listed the goals, right and wrong becomes true for the implementation that leads to positive results. Some areas have a combination of elements that an umbrella can't cover due to the opposite nature. You can't be moral to the cats and fish at the same time. If you stop the cat from eating the fish, they'll die, and if you don't, the fish does. That's nature. Evolution unfortunately has no logic, it only has balanced results. Therefore our job as moral humans is to modify the biological system where cats can survive vegan diets. This could happen with the right knowledge. Just because we can't expand morality to the fullest doesn't mean it isn't there. This relative spectrum is all we have until we make it finally perfect or continue to do so as we discover the universe. I am not sure where my views lie in terms of metaphysical theories of moral philosophy, whether in cognitivism or its denier, non-cognitivism. That never mattered and neither bothered me as much as the basis of moral motivation did. Because that's where morality becomes interesting. Even if we managed to pinpoint goodness and wrongness, what would motivate someone to be moral anyway? What would motivate us to be moral towards the world is instinctual if we don't use our mind. The goodness of a default human goes down to self-reward. A soldier who dies for his people is seeking either afterlife or heroism, ego, unless he loves the ally or hates the rival. The only time instinctual morality doesn't serve its owner is when feelings are involved. You could help your daughter just because you love her. You won't gain anything from helping, but you still do. You could kill someone just because you hate them. That won't bring any benefit either, but some still commit it. It's not necessarily a bad thing if your morality starts from instinct, but it's terrible if you leave it that way. The mind is all we got. Letting go of reason and philosophy is the biggest loss to one's life. I still do appreciate feelings and instincts. They are a good stopping force from committing harm to those we care about when reason does not discriminate. But still, that's nothing but a human property. It looks hard in the beginning to believe that goodness can be motivated by its own, where we should do good things just because that's good. Some argue that that's never possible. What a pity. These unfortunate ones can't be motivated to enact goodness without getting at least remembered for it. They must have a reward of some sort. Yes, it can be very troubling, but a good soul should always find its way. In fact, isn't it despicable to necessarily want something in return? Even when it's about righteousness. Humankind would most be savage, barbarian, and sadistic wasn't for all the deterring they face. Even those who think they're inherently good would be surprised if they thought honestly about their main motives. I was shocked when I found out that all my goodness was hoping for something back, whether now or after dying. Realizing all the harm I caused and being scared looking at my demons is what revealed the essence of morality. Not being evil is the primary motive to morality. Goodness is subordinate. Every time morality gets brought up, goodness comes to mind, doing good to others in the sense where if a person wanted to achieve morality, he should provide to others. It's very appealing to the mind to give treatment and resources for those who need it, but is that the moral necessity? What is it that the providers have that the poor don't? You can never offer protection to someone who isn't scared. So before you offer protection to someone, they must be scared first. People will do good to themselves. Everyone is able to exchange favors and resources and group up under communities and seek whatever they need. What they don't need is someone stopping them from doing so. It's not about what they want, it's about what they don't want. Doing good doesn't matter. What matters is not doing bad and not stopping others from helping themselves. Now I am at a point in my life where I really believe that those who control the world aren't the tech companies, or the military, nor the politicians who allegedly manipulate institutions. It's in fact the psychologists. At the end of the day, we're all humans. It's difficult to manhandle us physically or even scientifically, but it can be so easy if you find out how we think. Once you know how something works is when you are able to use it. All the drug addiction programs I ran into focus on approximately 90 to 95% treatment and rehabilitation of addicts, only 5 to 10% prevention. It should be the exact opposite. Some drug users even reach the level where they quit. It's no longer treatment that they need anymore, it's the prevention, but that won't make any benefit to those who want to capitalize off of drug epidemics. If something is prevented, then it's no longer there. Those organizations would need to move to a different area or even another country to keep their jobs. That's why it's better for them to keep treating lost and homeless drug users, who are going to always come back. These foundations make it seem as if drug users like the way they are. Actually, most drug users condemn their situation. They fight to quit every day, but even the successful ones don't spend a year sober before they're back on the corner again, doing dates and injecting fentanyl. The drugs aren't the problem, it's something leading to it. Chapter 4: Resistance. As a black man in this country, I live off of you being afraid of my response to anything. When the leverage is at an all-time high, threaten a stoppage of work. Joe Budden. They can fight you and they might actually stop you from winning, but they can't force you to lose. Winning could be up to them. Losing is always up to us. Once you refuse, loss is taken out. They can't force you to play, so how can they force you to lose? The barber shop's owner, who said I could work, wasn't actually the boss, but in fact some barbers inside. It wasn't hard to bring the issue onto the table. The guy that had a grudge was already slacking. A few tricks had him. We sat down with the so-called boss after I raised the issue. I made this lowlife lose control and hit me. He openly disrespected me. You can see the hate, misery, and lack of purpose as he mocks my speech when things get addressed. Although nothing was done about it, I was offered to either move to another branch, achieve his acceptance, or get let go. It was a waste of time moving to another branch. If it happened once, it's gonna happen again. What was still interesting about the new attempt at the new branch, that the owner was about to learn a good lesson. Money was necessary and I thought this job had to remain. They couldn't have made me sick. I was already sickened enough by the refugee camp. If one thing was a little hard is the fact that time was running out of my hands. I'm getting exhausted as I am learning to cut hair while still trying to fight against who wants me out. Both had to be worked on. The clients said I love my job, but I didn't. What might have made them think that was the honesty and hunger in treating them right and getting clean money off of clean haircuts. Cutting is indeed interesting, but the old saying of love what you do is superfluous. You shouldn't do your job only because you love it, you do it because you have to. How can someone say do what you love with a straight face? If any, it proves that they are still lost, no motives whatsoever. Wes Watson, a 10-year felon and a motivational speaker, once said, taking pleasure in not being pleased is the true happiness. Sickened enough and being not understanding the trust clients put on me, helped get constant 5 stars, reputation went up quick, it had been noticed. The owner was stunned. Yes, he did believe in me at first, but now he's really loving the money. For some reason, I thought that was enough to keep the guy off, but he sent his buddies one day and they really threatened me. The boss tried to play me, forcing me to keep it okay with them, thinking the money will make me, but I quit. What should have I satisfied them with anyways, to beg? He thought I loved the profit, which I appreciated, but not worshipped, like he did. We either do it right or just not. I was aiming for more money than he thought, but now he has to take their nonsense and kiss my 5 stars goodbye. I asked for way less and gave way more. You show these people that you stay professional no matter what your personal grievances may be, that's When they deem you as threatening, I've spoken to enough bill collectors to know how this goes. Joe Budden. With all the different areas of expertise, one thing I keep seeing is women being objectified by men, and women objectifying themselves. While I was cutting a client's hair once, his girlfriend was at the guest table scrolling her phone and waiting. Him and I are at the end of the hall. One of the barbers who were against us started talking as this girl was sitting. He usually talks about home and world news. This time though, he started running his mouth with sexual descriptions. It's hard to pay attention while mastering a fade, but I told my client that it is disrespectful to speak such language while a lady is at the house. I expressed the resentment with both my words and face. It came as a surprise that the guy didn't care himself. He didn't mind that his lady would listen to all this obscenity. Who respects who? The guy has no respect for his girl, the barber has no respect for women, and the woman still hangs around. It always comes to me that it's just me who thinks like that. This is not the first time. Reflecting a world where a man chases a woman for her sexual properties, and women only submitting to the strongest, constantly gets displayed to me by whoever I bring the conversation to. They all must have witnessed scenarios before my point was made. They must have questioned it. They then made their mind that the one who stands for women is either gay, poor, or stupid. Standing up for women will have you immediately outcasted from having friends or gaining respect. That is being made sure of, not only by men. Men here are just an element of the issue, but they aren't the only participant in it. Most women, too, support this way of life. Meaning, that the people I shall find supporting my views, can be any of them. This world will never be fixed as long as women or the feminine men are the main victims. The problem is attached with their bodies. I imagined it a lot. What if I was a woman? How will my day go? Staring is the first that comes to mind. My body being shown even when I am covering is the second. Me being trapped into a situation hence get raped is the third. A man getting close to you with his mouth and hands trying to feed off of you. What a nightmare. See. I find it hard to turn my eyes away from a girl walking in front of me. The instinctual need to look at her body and specifically her legs is always with me. I fight against it every day, and it was harder than just deciding it. But I got good at it. After a while it became a practice. You understand more and build more confidence as you continue to do that. What I always get reminded of is that they expect me to look at them when they are facing me on the sidewalk. This proves that tens of men have done that before me. They, therefore, expect another encounter. The serious challenge is when you start to know these women and deal with them, such as colleagues for example. It then becomes confusing. There was an administrator at the barber shop before. She was making remarks about me. She once said that it's interesting to see how I am staring at the scissors after I disinfect them. Later on, she offered me a chocolate and I said no. A few days later she was looking tired and devastated. My mind told me she was looking to have sex and was unable to obtain that, so I should offer. As you can guess, I was wrong. I can't remember exactly how the conversation went when I invited her to the coffee shop, but there was no courtesy or hidden ideas inside my speech. I said directly and quickly, that if you want to have sex, I can do that. She nodded her head. Don't know what that meant. I repeated and she got up and left. I knew I made a mistake, but I knew I was trying so hard not to approach women. So how did this happen? Sexual instinct develops as you develop, the subconscious mind that carries it, grows as you grow. Tactics against the first must be improved. I didn't know that. Some would say, the problem will always be there. I say, the problem becomes stronger as you do. There is no sense of regret but a sense of astonishment. Look how much sex drive can confuse a person. I said. That never stopped me from trying to avoid women more. My reason behind it is not to be a part of the sex offender world. 70% of men are sex offenders, they just don't get into trouble. A retired pilot once told me that everything is legal as long as you don't get caught. Rest in peace to the dead, but he loved women. That's all he ever spoke about. I can't let these men talk to me like they got the biggest guts in the world, not these idiots. My argument shall remain. If women are captives, can't protect themselves nor provide, then how come we are going to improve anything? Women are half the society. This is a hardcore problem. I used to be so against abortion. Killing a baby was against its freedom, so no. But then again, looking at all these women victims and what men use the child as an excuse for what they do to them, made me become with abortion rights at any time of pregnancy. Abortion kills the baby but saves the woman. No abortion saves the baby but kills the woman. Men are using women's bodies and nature as a weapon against them. That's the worst war to have. If it's that dirty, then let there be no babies. There is a bigger problem here and, luckily women are smart enough to see that. It's a valid fight. In The Civilization and Its Discontents 1929, Sigmund Freud has mentioned the Oedipus complex. That is the killing of the father, sense of regret, punishment, and instinctual renunciation. By reading the last chapters over and over again, it became clear that the father is a metaphor. It might be typical for the primitive man, but not for today's world. In today's world, the father is every system or lifestyle that lives under patriarchy. It's all a father element. Rising against this father has no rebelliousness. People get rid of or kill this father because they have no choice. They in fact bring another one instead. A true rebelliousness would only be an elimination of the Oedipus complex. As the days go by and I attack different problems, I come across the assumption that people who allegedly died from the Eros virus in my neighborhood were actually killed by their children. The virus was used as an excuse. The pandemic was proportional to other things. I know because I have had the same issue with my father. Death threats and serious problems arose. I barely maneuvered my way out of it. And luckily it was solved without harm. I just accepted that I was mentally sick. From drugs. Getting to the bottom of things doesn't seem like the part society is missing or having it hard to do. A simple and honest bit of digging and searching can lead you one way or the other to the conclusion of how things should go about. That can indeed be a hard one for an uneducated, but it's not impossible. However, when a conclusion of what should be done is reached, a stronger challenge takes place. A one that is not only serious but testing, that is, an act to change is an act of fighting, more likely an act of sacrifice. This right way of life can be enacted, but it has to be worked on. Things such as unity against the oppressor or the evil trap of pyramid schemes and ignorance will require a voice, an attempt, and most importantly, an example. A change from this state of the world to the perfect one is a long process that even if without getting killed, one lifetime can't attain it time-wise, for the final result to be witnessed. This brings a person to no longer a question to be answered, but rather, a choice to be made. This perfect world can be created, but are you willing to die for it? What would dying for a perfect world can tally up to? Either to destroy the ego and find a reason and a meaning behind benefiting others, or seek to know what goodness is in the first place. Eventually, we will all want to seek instinctual satisfaction when such a world is attained. More accurately, sexual fulfillment. In addition to a meditation of extreme existence and knowledge. A lot we are still missing on. As for what is a perfect world, we all know the answer. From a moral perspective of duty, instinctual satisfaction is only justified when no one around us is suffering. To go for pleasure when someone around us is in pain, is of pure evil. With this necessity for a perfect world to be reached, it will still be hard to seek satisfaction even if only a perfect country should be made. Same goes for a perfect family or even yet a perfect love relationship. Due to this case, everyone looks like they gave up on the principle of sacrifice, because of moral ignorance and interestingly, the lack of love. But maybe as well as cowardliness and the lack of responsibility and integrity. Anyone can come up and underestimate doing something new. Contrary to popular belief, it's the hardest to do and especially when it involves taking the life of others and yours. Doing something new means you are alone, you could be wrong and you could be stupid. Doing something new brings a load of questions at once. What's interesting is that these questions never stop until you do that new thing of yours. Doing something new means only you are responsible, only you exist and only you, who knows the truth. Have you worked for or gained what's enough to know the truth? Again, these questions never stop, they sometimes even repeat. Out of fear, not due to an issue with confidence as it might seem. It's time to go and do it. I have written my theory in a document, uploaded it online and shared it together with a statement in a Facebook post that is still private. I am planning on changing it to public only before the mass shooting takes place. The post says every issue I have with patriarchy, that I tell everyone to burn in hell, and that unity against this system is what's needed. That if dying is the only thing you keep challenging me with, there you go. I went and died. Now what? Every discussion I had online with people goes on for hours, just to come to this conclusion. If we all know what should be done, why aren't we going for it? This issue hasn't risen only with those that I agreed with, but also with those that I didn't. It seems as a problem of fear. No one wants to sacrifice. Some convince themselves with illusions that the world is already fine. Some accept defeat and some think that not caring is the ultimate wisdom. The book of the subtle art of not giving a $K is so widespread, people now think that they shouldn't even care. In any case, to prove the honesty of what I believe, I have got to show them. Otherwise, everybody can talk. It's so sad that life turned out to be this way. I haven't felt this sad in a while, maybe never this much. I can hear the young kid inside of me crying with disappointment. When I was a child I only envisioned niceness of the state of things. This world seemed like it was taken care of, that only good things happen, that the more you know and experience, the more goodness and excitement take place. Here I am now, planning on shooting all the policemen I can shoot, at the main square of Bari the capital. Going on a mass shooting will carry something, I am sure. But, I am already feeling alive for the first time. It's not ecstasy, not pain but just severity and extremeness, a bloom of light. As it seems now, the closer you get to death the more you feel alive. Like a sexual orgasm, it goes to the max only to shut down all of a sudden, and by that I mean death. Different from what I expected, there is not any fear. But, along the sadness, there is a big shock. What is happening? Why is this necessary? I keep reiterating inside my self-talk. I always felt that I am not alone, not a day in my life. There has always been somebody with me. I can't tell who it is or who they are. Sometimes it feels like a group of guys running the virtual machine. Sometimes, it feels something bigger than all of that. Every time they come around, I cuss them out, blaming them for everything, but it's good that I don't depend on them anymore and barely even think of them. 2 days before I came to such a decision, I had asked one of my childhood friends whether he can help me get hashish. Bari has the best quality. He said no, but now he just rang my phone. It's IPM, so hot of a weather and so furious I am, walking the house's front yard, back and forth thinking about what I was going to do. But now I have to grab the hashish. He pulls over with his new car. Hehehe. I got you what you want, it's not so much but it can make a good joint. Tee my friend, said. Give me a call when you get lit, ITB around. I didn't understand what he meant by the last thing. But the stuff he gave me was actually a lot. I rolled a joint, and behind the chicken house and under the cupresses trees, which are so long and surround our entire lot, I started smoking. The first spliff had me immediately go back to the old days of smoking at Towerland. The high is unique, so alive, and so intense. Anxiety increased but not in the form of a panic attack, but in the form of what the hell am I doing? Shooting people. Our lot and our house are so beautiful, peace is all over the place. Cats pass by, birds stop up the high palm trees and flies and insects are living their day. We're surrounded by farms in a small sand road. Hearing the cars and hollas every now and then gives me the chills. It makes me wish we had no system of patriarchy, it would have been so much fun if women were happier. It's been a few years since I hung around with anybody or dealt with anyone. All my recent visits were quick and I haven't met many people. Getting high and scrolling Facebook is showing me what's been missing. More crazy Barians doing meaningless Barian stuff. Went and started watching videos of the Parkland school shooting. It wasn't interesting to see the incident itself. I've seen what's worst. But the trial footage was irritating. Rarely do I keep watching something that bothers me, but I can't ignore what the whole world supports, which is calling Nicholas Cruz a bastard and a coward. The guy is definitely brave. That's off the chart and deep inside, we all know that. Simplicity is not a weakness, it's a strength. We only take the round trip and unpack things, when we can't understand the simple version. But what is hard to understand in these two simple statements? 3 men who look like 40 and 50 years old, calling a 24-year-old a bastard. 2 and a coward, in court. for something that he did when the latter was 19. These same men used offensive language in court. One raised the middle finger, in front of the judge. The other said, I am disgusted by the legal system. What complexity in a round trip of reasoning or questioning could ever make these two things sound other than retarded? What's even worse is that every time Nicholas apologized, people comment and say, what about the families? Wait. What? I thought 17 kids were killed, not 17 families. Now how stupid is that, and how anti-individualist and anti-freedom does these people's comments go from? Very collectivist to say the least, and tells me all I need to know. It tells me that America is suffering from its own people, who no longer or never knew what America is. Everyone has the right to defend himself, and yes, even a mass shooter. Whether something is morally good or bad is of no concern to the legal justice system. They only apply the law of equality and freedom. Let us ask, what is this law and where does it come from, to these men who think they are mature? Michael Schulman, who just taught me and confirmed that there are more children in the world than actual children. This man is clearly still at the kid phase. The way from a sucking child to a mature man is a long one. Sigmund Freud. With all what Nicholas right now is going through, he is calling him an animal, saying balls. Piece of shit. And most importantly, you have no emotions and no remorse. Noon in America is obliged by any laws to have emotions or remorse. America is not built on emotions, it's built on reason. In case someone wonders, there weren't 17 victims that day, there were 18. Nicolas was the first. The murderer is not necessarily the one who pulls the trigger. If so, I can send a hitman right now, to a few people. The judges and the jury are very smart. I love this, really. They show you what years of legal work can teach a person. They deal with justice, it's no simple thing, baby. I'll speak on behalf of the jury and tell you what they wanted to say. We have to give him life. And we have to show you these idiots who come and say all these words. So that the woke people can learn and know what the majority suffers from. Collectivism, immaturity, bad education, and parenting, bad psychologists and bad schools. No free man ever disrespects the court like that, even if his head is about to get whacked. Not an American one at least. Our actions should be due to the future. We shouldn't look at the past. It's out of our control. We make the best out of what we have, and what we now have left is Nicholas. They should help him, not torture him. But again, it tells me all I need to know. It's patriarchy. If I were Nicholas Cruz, I would never apologize. I would have already gone through the hard part. What's left is to own up to it, and say what you want to say. If you believe 17 kids should have been shot that day, tell us why. If you believe something is wrong with the world, we're all ears. Because there could be something wrong with the world, so that 17 kids get shot. Trust me, Nick, I've seen way worse. Never apologize, it doesn't matter, nor does it change anything, if any, it will make it worse. What you went through wasn't because of you, you were 19. I am 27 now and I barely know a thing or two to help me make a moral decision. You were left alone, no one cared but for themselves and their kids. They left you alone because you were so special, so unique, and so authentic. If you weren't authentic, you would have used their methods and got a friend or two. But you held up for what you like and what you believe. Whoever ignored you then, was the murderer, right there. Being alone is something 90% of people run from. They can't handle it, it's not easy. Michael Schulman is one of those, trust me. Listen to Big U, Danny Sanchez, and Shaka Singhor. They spent years in solitary. Hell, I spent only a day there and I started crying. But they tell us that loneliness is the killer and I agree. Stay strong, we love you. I shall get back to my own mass shooting if any. I am even more into doing it now. No change can happen if no examples are made and no messages were sent. I've checked the entrance and exit roads with Google Maps to the main square. Every time I envision the police I am going to shoot, I see a man in his 20s guarding the place. I ask myself, does he deserve it? Is it justified? What if I was him? What would I think of the guy coming to shoot? This terrorist is stupid. He is trying to change the world by killing me. I have nothing to do with it. He would say. There is some truth there, but there is also a misconception. He doesn't know you, but he knows who you're defending. But still, that man was also a child and he didn't know better. He is struggling to figure out whatever I figured out. He is innocent, deceived, and maybe has a family to feed. As well as, how do I know that what I am doing is going to have a good impact? Man, this whole thing is useless. That's not how you change the world. Why am I not learning from my own preaching? The best way is not to fight. Not to participate by being neither with nor without. Instead of me killing them, let them kill me instead. Or, let me be smart and navigate through things with intelligence. There must be another way I can use my power and skills with, better than picking the gun. But how, though? Chapter 5. Take it back to the market. The last thing that made sense, to be the right approach to apply my morality is to use whatever I have in my next encounters. As for the goals themselves, morality is clear now that it lives off of equality. We might not be able to change the amount of good, but whatever good is out there, let's not have more of it than the next person. I can engage in any work field. The goal is not material, it's ideological. As for patriarchy, it might be better to have as few claims as possible. I shouldn't tell anyone what I believe. The more claims, the more one is under pressure. Of people telling him that he should act based on that claim, or that he should change it. Being under the table at the same time is not good. Being manipulative and not telling the truth is immoral. But, I will abstain from doing so, only when the power is in my hand. Until then, I'll work for privacy. There are 4 types of political standpoints. With, against, in between, and it's personal. When I was young and ignorant I was with, then I turned out to be in between. I said this is hypocritical, I have to have a standpoint, to pick a side, that's what my friends told me, so I went against. Now, I have just learned that, it's better to keep it personal. I only speak out when I have to, otherwise. Why do you? Unless what you achieve is in the speech itself, if not, let it slide. I still look at the time wasted, the drugs taken and the lack of nutrition that I went under when I was at those refugee camps, or what Jevanji used to call them. Concentration camps. But, who knows? What works and what doesn't? How do I know that there was no value in that? Maybe I already worked hard enough. Maybe I got what it takes because of it. To talk about damage is to talk about regret. And if so, I should not regret anything. I am already not sure which way it will work. What is regret? Regret is usually someone doing something that then later on thinks shouldn't have been done. In my case, I don't know what I should have done, so how do I know what I should not have done? Regret swims only in other people's worlds. From it, I am free. A market seller can be fooled one day and come home with rocks or a useless material. He thinks that he should have traded with something else other than these rocks. I say, take it back to the market. You not knowing the market doesn't only carry disappointments but also carries hope. Tomorrow you might find someone in desperate need of some rocks. I should take everything I learned and continue. I can tell what I should do, but again if I trip, it's because I tripped. From there I shall assess and decide again. This concept might sound simple, but it evolves around bigger questions. Let me approach it from this angle. You only regret when you have a goal, because you can assess whether or not certain actions could have led to the achievement of that goal. On the other hand, I have no goals to achieve. I have principles to implement. They aren't material. I will never know if my principles had the effect that they should have had or not. Let me bring yet another angle. My goals are not bounded. They have no restrictions. There is no list of do's and don'ts that will determine me reaching the implementations. My goals are unknown. They are set by me, not by someone else, and I am never with the same judgment. If a wife asks her husband not to cheat and his goal is to remain with her, he knows what he should or should not do. If he falls for the pleasure of another woman and gets caught, then he shall regret. If a man doesn't have a wife and his goal is to find a beautiful one, he can't regret whether he cheated or not, because he doesn't know which one is more beautiful or if he has even seen all the beautiful women already. He is always up for change, up to seek. From this a big question comes up to our educational system. How can our students learn first and then act, when the reality necessitates us acting and then learning? I used to be so against the educational system that doesn't provide options, a one that injects information without asking the child what they want to do. Now I totally understand and agree that education should always remain random, and as it is now, we don't know what this child will want to do, so let's just give him all the things that seem to have substance of knowledge, ones that the ones before us have found to be useful in their past future decisions. Muammar Gaddafi, the murdered leader of Libya, said, "A kid who wants to draw should directly learn drawing and leave everything else." This way he becomes I used to agree, but now I don't. How the best at it do we know that the kid actually wanted to draw? If he knew more he would have wanted more things. Chapter 6 Celebrated Pyramid Scheme. Ignorance isn't the problem, ignorance is the key. Not quite a fan of Elon Musk, and neither do I think he actually runs or invents everything that's being claimed on him. But, he once said, that the answers aren't the hard part, it's the questions to be asked. The better and a clearer answer we want. The stronger, sharper, and accordingly structured should the questions be. The question is hard to find. What makes a person seek an answer is the moral of the story. A lot can tell you that every harm they escaped in business is when they felt or saw something not right and made them ask questions. Anxiety causes the answers to be sought. Knowing you are ignorant, knowing something is not right, something shouldn't be the way they are. You wanting to obtain, achieve, or reach success is never the right question. What is success? For what reason? How, who, and what determines it? Is it enough? Is it possible? Have people done it before? These are the questions that deserve to be asked. A cashier and an occasional pizza baker that I previously worked with in Doorland has told me that she was lost. She didn't feel okay. She looked fine and with things under control, but she wasn't where she wanted. I admired the fact that she opened up and said that she is lost, because a few do that nowadays. I wish I had elaborated on that with her. In my mind at the time, things needed to be figured out. I couldn't just say anything, so I thought, let me put this in the bank and comment on it later. Unfortunately, the baker-in-chief and his friend didn't like me much. I got let go a week or so after that. Those two were douchebags with a degree of honor. If an award can be given to someone for being misogynist, a sexual offender, and an idiot, those two would have earned it quickly. The chief baker's friend refused to move out of the door once, in front of others. I went underneath his arm. I didn't mind others seeing that. Little did this guy know that I'll be in the locker room right with the automatic light turned off, when he walked out of the toilet. I did pretty much the same and he had to bend over to go. That is all I wanted. Not worried about the rest, but I guess he couldn't handle that. I couldn't give this guy an answer, because he would have taken none, he would have cared for none. Although, I had to make him ask the question of, why stand up for myself when we are the only ones around, and not in front of the workers? The answers will then be given to him. Never give anyone an answer, give them a question. But, do they accept every question? Can they understand it? Are they going to accept it? Or fear of it maybe? Or even deny its accuracy? And why? All the answers that seem politically incorrect, are not. No one is afraid to push political answers, in fact. They make everyone happy. Because they do nothing. Although, everyone fears the questions. What stops a person from asking questions, or in other ways, to not have them ask themselves a question, is by convincing them that they already have the answer for whatever question they might have. In other words, give them an answer that looks true to any question. Is it easy to convince a wrong answer? No, it's not. Because all mankind has intelligence, it can't be a mental ability, it has to be another thing. Expressing my depression to my friends back at the dorm, when we were doing drugs, was highly disliked. I thought there was something wrong with me. Now I know that these people knew the answer to my questions, they just feared it. Because the answer tells you that you should quit. A lazy person likes not being asked why he is wasting his time. He knows why. Why do people still follow and never go independent? Ask a person why they are working for someone else. They'll tell you it's for a living. Ask them why not make it as an entrepreneur. They'll say they aren't interested. Ask them why they are unhappy and they'll slap your face. That's because they knew all along. They are just afraid to go through the real process. They knew the answer but they never saw it. They knew something they didn't know. They looked at it from a distance but never walked the miles. Fear stopping an answer is evident, but what about the ego-induced ignorance of knowledge? Thinking you already know because you can't accept the fact that you don't. Haha, oh boy, they are suffering, I said while walking back and forth to my room, while my nephews were being loud in the next one. The white neon light bulb is so shady and it glooms. Giving extra intensity to my thought process, I can't tell whether it is a good or a bad one. I am already crazy. I added, not knowing why. I knew I had to make changes, I knew I am different. Such a way of life will get me in trouble in no time, because Hashia is all about a pre-answered style of living. Everything is answered, every question is looked at as a threat. It's looked at as an evil rebelliousness. I once asked a fellow what he thinks will happen after we die. And, are you religious? He asked. Why, so that I know how to answer you. You should know the answer regardless of knowing who I am. No, I have to know, he insisted. I claimed to be religious just to withdraw. I failed in establishing a questionable discussion, so I had to listen to some crack of nonsense, full of regret. Him saying that tells me all I need to know. Not the fact that something is wrong with religion, but because he set limits to it. An answer is an answer regardless, and when you don't know the level of the person inquiring, you tend to give the simple one first. He didn't know the simple version, he knew the complicated one. It could be that Phazoism has the answer, but he certainly didn't know it for sure.